Okay, I didn't really steal it. It was shared with me. And you may say that makes my title clickbait, but the fact is pros really do keep a putting playbook. And the things that they keep up with and track are so radically different than what you ever think about. That's why they get better and progress at putting over time and you don't. And I'm going to share with you what's in it in this video and what you can take from that to help you hole more putts. So that makes the title Ethical Clickbait. This video is going to help you. Let's get into it. So Lewis Kelly is a professional golfer. He makes a living playing golf. He's currently trying to qualify for the Korn Ferry Tour, and he shared with me the statistics that he keeps relative to his putting. And the thing that jumped out at me immediately is that pros track completely different stats on their putting than amateurs do. And if amateurs got an understanding of what pros track and why, it would improve their putting. So that's what we're going to talk about, how to improve your putting by keeping up with the things that matter to people who play this game seriously for a living. So Lewis keeps track of his total putts per round, but he also knows that's not really an indicator of how good a putter you are. He also keeps up with the distance of those putts because that's an indicator of how tough they are. I'll give you a great example in my own personal life. I recently played a round of golf where I had 24 putts in a round. That is incredible. Great low number of putts, but the fact is I played tees that were too far for me, and so I hit 0 greens in regulation on that round, which means I had a lot of short up and downs, easy up and downs. I got the ball closer to the hole. It took fewer putts. But keeping track of the number of feet of putts, where he was when he started, helps Lewis know really how he measures up. Because let's face it, if you start out 30 feet from the hole, you're going to have a lot more putts than if you start out 5 feet from the hole. Now Lewis tracks the number of feet of putts he actually rolled in the hole versus the overall total number of feet of putts he faced in the round. And so if he starts out 40 feet from the hole and he hits it to within 3 putts, that's 3 out of a total of 40 feet. And he takes a percentage of that. In one of the rounds, Lewis had 335 total feet and he made 65 feet worth of putts in the hole. That's 19%. That is elite. If you get 18, 19, 20% of the total feet of putts you had into the hole, you're putting at an excellent level. And wait until you see how he breaks that down, because these next few really shocked me. Obviously, he tracks both 1 putts and 3 putts, makes notes of those, but his goal is to get 1/3 of his greens with 1 putt. That's 6 out of 18 greens in 1 putt. The key thought process here is keeping up the distance where your 1 putts come from and the distance where your 3 putts come from tell you what you need to work on to lower the number of 3 putts. Lewis has 1 3-putt every second round, which is actually slightly better than the PGA Tour, where they have 1 3-putt every 1.5 rounds or so. So Lewis goes over 2 rounds between 3 putts. The average tour pro goes just under 2 rounds between 3 putts. Where do you fit in that? Do you even track and keep up with that? Make your goal to go 2 rounds between 3 putts. 1 3-putt every second round that you play. That'll improve your putting, and if you track where your 1 and 3 putts come from, you'll know what you need to work on. On top of that, the little statistic that he keeps up with a goal to get 1/3 or 6 out of 18 greens with 1 putt is part of the formula I've given golfers for years to break 80. Most everybody wants to break 80. Well, if you get up and down 6 times, that means you 1 putt 6 greens. That gets you from 36 down to 30 putts. I'm assuming you don't make any 3 putts because you've worked on that. So that gets you down to 30 putts. Now you hit 6 greens in regulation, and then you've got 6 holes that you can miss something or not get up and down or make a bogey or whatever, and you're at 78. That's a formula. 6 greens in regulation, 6 up and downs, 6 whatevers that will get you consistently under 80. That's something you can work on. So start tracking 1 putts and 3 putts. Set a goal to get up and down 6 times with 1 putt in every round. This next one is fascinating to me. Lewis tracks what he calls offensive putts versus defensive putts. And in the 2 rounds that he played here on his offensive putts, he made 31% and 20%. On his defensive putts, he made 88% and 50%. So he made a much higher percentage of the defensive putts. Now, I don't know exactly what Lewis calls an offensive or defensive putt, but I suspect an offensive putt is when you're being aggressive, you're confident on the line and the speed, and you're going to try to charge it in, make certain that you get it there. I say that and suspect that because Lewis, as we're going to talk about in a minute, makes a huge emphasis on at least getting the ball to the hole, not leaving putts short. But if I were him and I knew that and started tracking this stat, which I'm going to now, if I knew when I think defensively, I make half to almost 90% of my putts, and when I think offensively, like I'm being aggressive, I only make 20 to 30% of my putts, guess what? I'm going to putt defensively most of the time because that's a higher make percentage. A stat that he tracks and that pros track that most amateurs have never even thought of, but it makes a huge difference in your make percentage. Start tracking that, keeping up with in your mind, am I being aggressive on this putt or am I being defensive and making sure I get it to the hole but only 1 foot past so that there's no way I'm going to be too far away. I've got an easy second putt. Now let's talk about how much attention pros pay to speed and distance control. Notice that Lewis keeps up here with how many times his putts go past the hole. That's an important statistic to him. It should be an important statistic to all of us because, little secret about putting, if you leave it short, it never goes in. If you get it at least to the hole, it has a chance. What this tells me is even when Lewis is putting what he calls defensively, he still makes sure that the ball gets to the hole. Now he has some outliers here. Those outliers are times where he gets it past the hole, but it's too far past the hole. For me, that would be, and that's something I do keep up with, I want to get 1 to 3 feet past the hole. If I'm short of the hole, that's a bad putt. If I'm a foot past, that's a really good putt. If I'm 3 feet past, that's tolerable. If I'm more than 3 feet past, that's a bad putt. I didn't control my speed very well. But keeping up with this and what distance that he's doing this from makes it much easier to know what he needs to work on mentally and in his practice. And even if you don't practice, this will tell you what you need to work on in your pre-round warm-up when you're out on the putting green rolling the ball around. Before we leave this concept of speed and distance control, you notice I've talked about several times, and I'm going to talk about it again, Lewis keeps track of the distance of putts. In other words, he's stepped them off, walked them off, and measured them. You need to do that no matter how you control speed and distance. Whether you're very mechanical and try to move the putter a certain distance, or whether you're very feel-based, or whatever it is that you use, whatever method you use to control speed and distance, you've got to give your brain a constant. Like, oh, this is 12 steps. This is 18 steps. This is 3 steps. So that then you're giving your brain some information so you can develop a feel for speed and distance. It's hard to get a feel if you don't know what you're feeling. And if you just look at the putt and go, oh, okay, this is that far, and you roll it, and yeah, this one is that far, and you roll it, then it's all variables. And you cannot get a feel for something if you don't have some concept, at least, of what you're feeling. So walk off and measure the distance of all of your putts. It's really fast. It won't slow down play. And at worst, you're giving your brain a baseline for, oh, that's what my stroke for 10 steps feels like. That's what my stroke for 3 steps feel like. you'll develop a much better feel for speed and distance. This next one is also very interesting to me. He breaks his putts down into specific distances, like he's got here 4 feet and less, from 4 to 12 feet, 12 to 30 feet, and over 30 feet. And from each distance, he tracks his make percentage, how many he leaves long of the hole, how many he leaves short of the hole. And what that does and what that gives you is a very specific picture of where you make the most, where you leave the most short, where you leave the most long, what you need to work on. Now, when you go out to practice your putting or you go on the practice green before your round, you know, oh gosh, I need to work on 12 to 15 feet because that's where I leave them long and short the most. Or I need to work on 4 feet and less because I miss too many of the short ones. But at least you know, and he tracks that very specifically. Most golfers don't know what their average make percentage is from those various distances, and that's why they don't know what to practice and never get better. Also should tell you that Lewis, like most every pro, invests in and practices green reading. Lewis uses the EGOS Expert Green Reading Operating System that was developed by Andy Walters and that we talk about a lot on this channel and have a master class on. Lewis uses that system on multiple occasions. Lewis has driven over 4 hours to meet with Andy Walters for an EGOS green reading lesson and follow-up. He takes green reading that seriously and that importantly. In fact, here's what Lewis had to say about Andy Walters and the EGOS green reading method.
This is Andy Walters. He is the master that has ever been created by God to read a green, not only precisely, but perfect every time. And I use that, and we're going to challenge me, anybody in the world. This is the best putting system, green reading system that is perfect every time.
Just an engineer that got frustrated reading greens poorly, and I knew there was a mathematical solution. I solved it, I applied.
And Lewis constantly shares his putting statistics with Andy, and they have constant conversations about interpreting these and what it means, because he's consistently working to get better, although in many categories he's already in the top 5 on the PGA Tour, even though he's still qualifying for the Korn Ferry Tour. You see, it's not just about stroke mechanics. It's also about green reading, aiming, and speed control. Pros track everything because they value the feedback and they use it to improve. You can start tracking some of these things and make the same type of improvement. Here's the bottom line. Tracking all this is way better than feeling I putted well today, or yeah, I couldn't make anything today. That's just a feeling, but there's no real data or information there to help you get better. And you both want that and need that. So if you want to improve your putting like the tour pros, then start tracking the right data. Send me an email and I'll send you a strokes gain calculator and some other tracking email that will help you with that. Check out my course, How to Putt the Right Way. It'll give you the basics. Check out the EGOS Green Reading Masterclass. Share this video with a friend. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Check out this video on the screen now. And until next time, here's to you keeping up with what you do well and what you don't do well and making more putts.